Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is to continue the thing that we started last Friday, but we got sidetracked. We are working on this app called Notestrator. It is an app that allows you to use a drawing tablet, just like this one, to take notes on top of your computer screen, just like this. And what we are doing in this stream is preparing the app for the first release. So this is how you can draw on top of a computer screen, useful for things like streaming and if you are an educator or if you're just doing a presentation online, that sort of thing. And we are preparing the application for the first release. It is an application written in JavaScript using Electron. And today we are going to continue working on this part of the app, which is the menu, as well as the drawing window itself. And there are plenty of things that we need to fix. We are reviewing the code and we are finding things that we need to do and putting them here in this README file. Yeah, okay, so I guess there is already something here that we left on Friday that we can pick up right now, which is this. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that the evaluate function has the right name here for the process. Yeah, it does not. So last Friday when we got distracted by something else, if you want to know what that something else is, it's super interesting. But go watch the video for the Friday stream for that. So we were in the process of giving proper names to things. Our app is composed of the main process, the main Electron process, and then a kind of browser window, which is for the drawing itself. It's a transparent browser window that occupies your whole screen. So that's one kind of browser window, and you may have multiple of them if you have multiple displays. And then there is another kind of browser window, which is the menu. Now, we were giving proper names to stuff in this drawings browser window. So I suppose that something I want to do is to change the drawings event name to drawing editors. So in particular, the names that we gave to stuff, we are giving this better name. So the names that we are assigning are, you have a drawing editor, and that is composed of a drawing and then a custom cursor. Let me see if I can fold my way into the custom cursor. Yes, here is the custom cursor. So this whole thing used to be called the drawing, but now it's called the drawing editor. I think it makes more sense that way. So the events used to be called, so we have these events that allow you to run code in that browser window or those browser windows for all the displays. And the event used to be called, or used to have a parameter called drawings. And now I'm switching that to drawing editors. So let's go over every occurrence of this. And I'm doing this manually, though I could probably do this in one pass, but I'm doing this search and replace manually because I want to catch any mistakes in the middle. Now, to prove that this works, I can, for instance, switch to a different color, and that will send an event using this drawing editors variable. So there you go, that works. Now, I'm going to commit this, and I am going to go to the variable name. Yeah, so we have these variable names that are the drawings. I'm going to change them to drawings, to change them from drawings to drawing editors. Same story, right? And I suppose that since I'm doing that, I'm also changing drawing into drawing editor over here when I iterate over them, right? So in this position, I'm changing the name. And you may be thinking, well, that's kind of silly, but I don't think it is. Giving proper names to stuff is what guarantees that this code will be readable down the road. So I think this is super important work. And there is one more here. But that's not all. We are going to see that there are more things. And maybe we could or should have tests for this, because there are many behaviors in the app that I'm kind of changing with this global search and replaces, but then I don't have any automated tests, so it's hard for me to tell if I broke something. Then again, this is kind of a difficult app to test because I would need to simulate clicking and dragging for drawing, and it is possible, it's doable. There is the technology to do that, but it's just annoying to use. Okay, now I formatted the code using Prettier, and I'm going to commit whatever changes come out of that. And there is more, right? This HTML file, it should be called drawing editor. So I guess I'm going to do a search and replace for this. And there are only 2 occurrences: when I create it and when I use it. Oops. I made a mistake. There you go. And then I suppose I should delete the drawing file. What else? Hang in there. Is there an index HTML file? No. I saw something that wasn't there. Okay, so I think that this refactoring is over, but I'm going to go over this just once more. There are only 76 occurrences of this, so it should be relatively quick. Yep, all of this makes sense. Those make sense as well. And I'm already in the middle. Yeah. Okay, so I think I am safe to just say that this is done. Next, there is something that I know I want to investigate, which is something that kept me thinking after the stream on Friday. So first of all, I want to expand this code. So how do I do that? Like so, okay. And I have here this div that annoys me. I'm going to fold stuff again just to show you the structure of what's going on. So we have a container, which is our drawing editor. And then inside we have the drawing itself, which is the SVG, and we have the custom cursor. Now what annoys me is this div, because it is replicating what is already here, the position absolute and the 4 coordinates to make the thing stretch. So I suppose that I should be able to delete this. And the code is supposed to just continue working as it was before. And it is working. So probably that was a leftover from before we introduced the custom cursor. And I was just programming fast and I didn't notice. But yes, I am right. I was up all night thinking about this. Not really. But I was right about this. So we were able to get rid of that. So with that, now we have a very clean structure. We have a drawing editor that contains an SVG as well as a custom cursor. Now I wonder if we can apply the same trick to the other parts, because the custom cursor is this div and it contains another div that contains an SVG. Okay. So in this case, it makes sense to have these as separate things, because we have different cursors in case you have the eraser enabled, or if you don't have the eraser enabled, so the crosshair that you saw a moment ago. So it makes sense to have this as div, because it is 2 things and I need to alternate which one is visible. All right, so with that out of the way, let's review the code for the drawing editor. So all this metadata looks about right. And then we have some IPC stuff to be able to talk to Electron. And then this, I already explained this in detail in previous streams, and it makes sense. So now let's look at the drawing editor. It disables the cursor, and that's necessary because we have the custom cursor, and then it stretches across the screen. But what's really, really important is at some point we will want to extract this drawing editor so that we can reuse it for like a web page or whatever. So we want to reuse this drawing engine. And when you get to extract that, we don't know the size of the canvas that the person will want to have. But that's all right, because given the size, so if you instantiate a drawing editor in some particular dimensions, and then you put the SVG in there, it will occupy the whole space. And therefore, you're able to just create a div, which is a drawing editor, and give it a certain size, and the SVG will stretch to fill that size. So that's all good. Now let's see this again. We were playing with this code last time, and I don't think I am done with that. I mean, there are still some to-dos here. So this reset, I think, is something that makes sense in the drawing as opposed to the drawing editor. It's an operation like clicking and dragging the cursor to draw, and that's something that happens in the drawing itself. So to move this down, well, first of all, I'm just going to test that this even works as it is. So I can draw, and I can come here to reset, and it resets the drawing. So that is working. Now, let's push this down. First, I'm going to move the function there. So let's go to our drawing, and let's see where the end of this is, because I think that reset makes more sense after drawing, and this is the part of the code that takes care of the drawing itself. So I am going to drop the reset stuff after that, and then when I say this create undo point, what I actually mean is the create undo point function from the parent at this point, the drawing editor, which I already have a variable to represent over here. So I can just replace the this with drawing editor. Now let's see if this makes sense as well. So this query selector, highlighter, and pen. So yeah, I guess in this case I can leave these two as they are, because they are children of exactly where I am right now. Now the function has been moved and the variable references have been updated accordingly, but I need to find occurrences of where I'm using reset, because now, yeah, this is no longer in the drawing editor. Now this is in the drawing itself. And I suppose that was the only occurrence. So after having done that, I should still be able to draw and then come here to reset and reset, just like that. And then do redo for the reset still works. Perfect. So maybe we should take on this hard problem here, push this to do. Push this code up to the Electron process to handle multiple windows. I'm considering whether I want to take this on right now because it's sort of complicated. I think I will. I'll take this on right now. So yeah, let's do this. Okay, so first of all, what I want to do is probably have the undo redo stack available to me on the main process. So I will create undo redo stacks over here. Now it's a matter of where I want to do that. I suppose that creating the windows is more important, so an evaluate is super important. And then maybe these guys that are doing the keyboard shortcuts. Yeah, while I'm here, I think that the best place to have this is right there. Right before these auxiliary functions. But now that I'm looking at this, the auxiliary functions are super simple. I simplified this by creating this browser Windows set last time. So maybe I will get distracted, but I may take care of this right now. So let's find occurrences of show. So here's one. When you hit all the keyboard shortcuts, and I'm going to perform this refactoring, and then I will see if I like it. So I got rid of show. And let me review that all occurrences of show make sense. Yep, they all make sense. Now let's look for occurrences of hide. And I think there is only one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's this guy there. And then this is specific to the menu. And then I can get rid of hide. And then for quit, I think there are two occurrences of quit. So this is one. And that's another. And then I can get rid of quit. Now let's go over this again to see the changes we introduced. And also let's test that everything is working. So one way to test this is to maybe hide the menu and show the menu, and hide all the windows and show all the windows, all using keyboard shortcuts. So all of that is working. So the refactoring is successful. Now let's see if we like what we have. It is more verbose. We are repeating ourselves a bit more. I think it is clearer. Kind of don't like having the auxiliary functions there. I mean, this code, I don't like the way it reads. And I already have sort of the abstraction of the browser window, so I can manipulate all of them together. And that was the intent of those functions in the first place. All right, so now I have a good position where I want to have my undo redo stacks, which is right at the end of the code. And I suppose I just have them as stacks over here. So undo stack. And of course, I represent a stack with an array or a list. And the same for the redo stack. And then I suppose I will need to have this create undo point as a function, because it is used in multiple places. And it makes sense to have that. Yeah, it makes sense to have this as a function. So create undo point is a function that doesn't really take any arguments. And then I will need to push into the undo stack some stuff. Oh, but there is an issue. The issue is when I call create undo point, I need to store the SVGs. But from which windows? Right? Well, I suppose I can store from all of them, not the one, just the one that changed. And then when I restore, I can restore all of them, not just the one that changed. Otherwise, when you create an undo point, you would have to say for which window. And that could get annoying because I don't really have a reference to the different windows for the different drawings. I don't really have a name, a way to get a hold of that. So I suppose I'm going to store all of them. It's relatively easy to do, actually. I can just call evaluate. And if you want to learn more about evaluate, I think that the code review for this was last Thursday. I explained this in detail. In any case, I can call evaluate with the process. Well, actually it's processes, but never mind that. Drawing editors and some JavaScript to run, which will be similar to this thing, but not quite. So let me format this code. And well, in this case, I don't want to have this. I want to have document dot query selector get a hold of the drawing and get a hold of the inner HTML for that drawing. But here I have a problem already. The problem is, oh, not quite actually. This is just going to work out. The problem I was thinking about was that I would have a disconnect between the windows or the drawing editors and the results that come from them, but they are ordered. And this is going to be a set of results, but the set is ordered in JavaScript, so I can iterate over that. So I think it's just going to work out. In other words, all I have to do in the undo stack is push to the undo stack the result of evaluating this. And everything will just work out. Now, naturally, I also have to truncate the redo stack at that point, which is easy enough. So when I create an undo point, I invalidate the whole redo stack. Oh, and this is asynchronous, so I want to await for that. And that's all there is to it, actually, I suppose. Now let's also create this undo and redo functions. Then we'll change, I guess I'll do in one pass. I will do the create undo point, and I will do the undo function and the redo function. And then I'm going to wire everything to use these functions, get rid of these implementations, and see if everything works. Now let's create the undo function, which will iterate over the, well, first of all, it needs to get a hold of the undo stack. So it needs to pop the undo stack. And then I'll call this the undo point. Since this is create undo point, I'm going to call this undo point. And I finally settled, I think, on a name that I like for this. I was struggling with this name for several streams now. In any case, so I'm popping from the undo stack and I'm checking if the undo point is undefined, because if it is, I don't do anything anymore. Then I have to iterate over the drawings. So I'm going to drawing editor of drawing editors. This is going to iterate over the drawings. But I also need to iterate over the stuff on my undo point, and I need to do those two in sync. So I suppose I'm going to, so this undo point is a set. It has to be a list. I can just transform those guys into lists, I suppose. Shouldn't be too hard. And I can do this here, or I can actually change their meaning. When I do this, I could do it with a list. And my browser windows are also a set, and my drawing editors a set as well. And I know that the set is ordered, but I think that at this point I do have a notion of ordering that I want to make more explicit in the code. So I'm going to change this to lists. Now, of course, I have to see all the places where I use browser windows. And instead of add, I will have to say push. And the same for drawing editors. All right, and now for the real reason why I'm doing this, this needs to be a list as well. Not a huge change in terms of functionality, but it's a more explicit data structure for what I want to do. And now I am pushing a list. So this becomes a list of lists. And over here, the undo point is now a list. And now I'm going to check if the undo point is undefined. And if, no, actually just for let index equals 0 while in, so I have to be explicit. Instead of using a for off, I have to actually create an index because I want to traverse the two lists in parallel. I want to traverse the undo point along with the drawing editors. And now I can just, well, first of all, I have to push something into the redo stack. So I guess I will create a redo point with the current material in there. All right, so while I'm looping, I'll have to do these things. And then at the end, I have to go to the redo stack to push the redo point. And this is going to be similar to what we have over here. More or less. This is getting weird and complicated. Because now I need to evaluate some code into a specific window, but I don't have a notion, as I mentioned before, I don't have a way to index into a specific drawing editor. But if I am storing the different drawings, I have to go ahead and get back to them and store them there. So maybe this is not going to fly and I'm going to need a different strategy. I guess I could just get a hold of a specific browser window and evaluate some code in there. That would not be too difficult, I don't think. Yeah, but I'm not liking the direction this is taking, so I guess I'm going to revert this. Most of these changes, yes, all of these changes I don't care about, so I can just revert using git. And we are going to try again. So I guess I have a different strategy for this. Each drawing window will have its own undo redo stack, but I'm going to also have a global notion of undo redo, which forwards this event to all windows. So when I create an undo point on one of the windows, it's going to be a different drawing, but in all other windows, it's going to be the same drawing, just I will pretend that all these browser windows are the same just by syncing the event of undo redoing them. So it's not that I'm going to push this code up to the Electron process to handle multiple windows. I just synchronize these events across the windows. And I suppose that this is actually a nice idea because then the drawing editor will have a notion of undo redo that I can later extract into as part of the drawing engine. So let's see where this takes us. Well, I suppose I will have to create undo point, and I will have to undo and redo on all windows. So let me just go to the place where I create undo point. And instead of doing this on a single drawing editor, I'm going to loop. Or better yet, I'm just going to send the IPC event, right? Because the IPC already loops for me. So it goes something like this. Right here, when I'm trying to create the undo point, what I can do is just go to the main process and evaluate on all drawing editors some code and what is this code going to do? Well, it is going to create undo point. Okay, let me see if I agree with what I just wrote. When I'm creating an undo point, I'm going to actually go to the main process and tell it to evaluate and then go to all the drawing editors and then send and get a hold of the drawing editor and create an undo point. Okay. I'm going to take this snippet and save it because I am going to reuse it. So let me find other occurrences of create undo point. For instance, here. And then there. And then I touched all the relevant places. But that's not all. We also have to do that to undo and redo. Well, that is actually already taken care of. Yep. That was, I guess, not working before. Yep. I don't think that that was working. That's all right, as it is working now. I mean, the thing that was not working was we were already sending the undo and redo function calls to all the drawing windows, but we were not creating the undo points on all of them. So the undo points were out of sync. But I think that this works now. So I can draw on top of this screen and then draw on top of my secondary screen. And then when I undo, I undid the secondary screen, redoes this, the primary screen. And then when I reset them all, they all reset. Yeah, there is an issue when I reset. Let's commit the code that we have because we are in a good direction. We are heading there. What happens when I reset and why is it wrong? I don't see why that would be wrong. Hmm. You cannot see the issue. It's happening on my second display. Let me see what happens if I just have a single display going on. See, I clicked on undo and it did not undo. Let's see all occurrences of reset and maybe figure what could be going wrong. I think I see the issue. I am already going to, when I'm saying reset, I'm already going to all the drawing editors. So I don't need, in my reset function, don't need to go again to all the drawing editors. That is what's mixing things up. Yeah. Yeah, let me go to the commit that I just made, because I'm probably going to revert some code from there. Yep, I think that was good. Let's try it this time. Yeah, now this is working. Now let me try the multiple displays. And reset, and then come back. And yes, the drawing in all the displays came back. Hey Arya, IGK Design is here. I promise I won't ask black hole questions today. Oh, why not? That was a lot of fun. So how did all the black holes come along? Now that you have 7 black holes. Can you run 7 black holes and not have performance issues? Can you wire the audio the way that you want using the 7 black holes? Can you get your head around the 7 black holes without having to draw diagrams of the audio routing that you have? I mean, I can just imagine how complicated it would be to be like the front of desk guy on like a concert, and then you have to do headphone mixes for 10 people, and oh man, that is a very hard job. Okay, so where are we? I think that it's done. The undo redo now works across screens. I don't really like how the reset is so much different from everything else. So let me go over the code again to see if I can tell myself a convincing story. When I'm setting the settings, when I change the settings, I need to store this for future use, and I need to tell the custom cursor to update. Then on the undo redo stack, I have one per process. And in some cases, I will want to go to the main process and send undo and redo events to all of them. In some cases, that's sort of baked in. But to create an undo point, I just push the current state of my drawing into the undo stack, and then I truncate the redo stack. And I think that makes sense. That's a good thing to have it. And I kind of like the way that the undo redo stack is part of the drawing. And if you had like a web page and you have multiple canvases and you want to synchronize the undo across all of them, then you, I guess, would just perform the same trick where you trigger the undo redo event to all the drawings. Okay, let's see what Arya has to say. So far, so good. I mean, it works for me, but I was going to deploy them at this show because of COVID. We aren't allowed to go in today. Oh, that's too bad. I'm sorry. Somehow that is easier to my mind than when stuff goes on the internet. And the big desk helps. Yeah, I suppose so. I used to do that. First day is pretty stressful. I can only imagine. Yeah, I don't think I can take it. It's too many sliders. But I guess it is nice to see everything at once. Okay, so this story is a story that I like. Then the create undo point is only relative to this drawing. The undo is only relative to this drawing. And the way that the undo works. Oh yeah, so I found that name that I liked. Undo point. Redo point. And then hang on, what's happening here? I get a hold of the drawing and I push its inner HTML into the redo stack. Oh, and then I actually apply the undo. And same here, I suppose. I pop to get something, and if it's not there, I stop execution. Then I get a hold of the drawing, and then I suppose I could extract this too. It wouldn't hurt. It will also be a nice way to document the children of this component. Yeah, let me commit this and then perform this other refactoring. So I have on a drawing editor, a drawing and a cursor. And the nice thing about extracting this variable is that now I can say things like this. And then these two lines go away. And then this just falls out. It is kind of silly that I have an undo stack and a redo stack. I guess I could just have an undo stack and then have a pointer in there instead of treating it as an actual stack. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just an alternative implementation. I would have to truncate the thing to the length anyway. But at least this whole popping and pushing would look less silly. Yeah, I'll try that. Yeah, so this was just extracting some variables. That is all right. Let's see if I can still undo. Yes, I can. All right. So now let's give this another try. Instead of having an undo and a redo stack, let me see all the places where I have the redo stack going on. Those are the only places. I suppose I can, now that I have these nice functions that I extracted, and those are the only places where I interact with stuff, it is easy for me to implement this in a different way that may be more sensible. So I will get rid of the redo stack and I will have only the undo stack, and then I will push to the undo stack, but I actually have to do it Well, I have to keep pointer into the undo stack. And at this point, I'm not really sure that this is any better because I have to manage the pointer, but let's try this implementation and see if we prefer it. So what do we do here? Well, we truncate the undo stack. So this undo stack length is equal to this undo pointer. And then we push. And I may have a off by one mistake here. Yeah, but I don't think I have. I think this is correct. And then I add to this pointer. And then this undo, it really amounts to the same. So if my undo pointer is equal to 0, well, I guess it should start at -1. And then I do have an off by 1 problem here. But then it actually isn't a pointer. Maybe it should be called an index. I mean, this amounts to the same thing I had before, but I don't think I prefer it. I have only one stack, but then I have to keep track of the index. And yeah, let's just give this one more second to see if we like it. No, I already know. I don't like it. I think I prefer the undo redo stack situation. So I can just revert this and run the app again. There you go. Everything is working. And we can commit whatever is there. So, okay, I settled on an implementation. I like the thing that I have here. Let's go to the drawing itself, where is the meat of the drawing engine. That's where we collect points and where we actually put stuff on the screen. First of all, this indentation is incorrect. Needs to go to in. Then the positioning is all right. I want the SVG to occupy the whole parent. I'm going to commit this indentation change. Then let's see, we have a drawing editor, which is our parent. And then I'm going to have this as a separate paragraph in the code. So I'm going to put a space there. Then we have a MouseDown event. And that MouseDown event is going to do a lot of things, which is literally doing the drawing. And then we have the reset. And that is just going to the drawing editor, creating an undo point, and then actually resetting. So we just looked at this, and this is all right. So let's look at the implementation of the drawing itself. It starts on the mouse down. So when I put my pen on the tablet, when it actually touches the tablet, that triggers a mouse down event to the browser. And I'm going to do some asynchronous stuff here, where I have to await for, I have a little trick that does something asynchronous. So I have to make this asynchronous, and I have to look at the event because I need to know the coordinates of the cursor. I need to know which button you clicked. So yeah, having the event here is crucial. First, I will deal with this special feature, which is if you hold the pen, it has two buttons. So if you hold one of the buttons in the pen, it triggers a right click. And I can check if I have a right click by checking the button. And then I'm going to keep the original tool that you have selected. So here's how it works. When I right click, I go from the drawing to the eraser. And then I can drag around. And then when I release, it goes back to the original tool. So if you are drawing, you can just hit the button on the pen and you will be erasing. So that's what this code is handling. It's checking if I have a right click and then storing the original tool to be able to recover it later. And then if it is a right click, then I'm going to go to the menu and I'm going to select the eraser and click on it. Let me see if I have a better selector for this. I guess I have. Oh, no, that's not the right place. Yeah, over here when I am handling the keyboard shortcuts, it's exactly the same story. So that's the selector that I have. Then I will assign some handlers for the mouse move and mouse up events. The mouse move of something like the pen is going to be drawing, the mouse up is going to do some other things. And of course, they depend on the tool. So I'm going to create these two variables, and I'm going to switch case on which tool I have, and I'm going to do different things in different cases. And then this switch ends here. And then the events that I have, I will assign to those variables. I will then bind them. So on mouse move, I'm going to do the handle mouse move function, which I'm then later going to remove when I do mouse up. So this way, when I put the cursor down, I receive a MouseDown event, which binds new mouse move and mouse up events, and then I move. And then when I release, it is going to remove the mouse move event, and the mouse up only happens once. So all these event handlers are forgotten. They are disabled. Then what do I do on mouse up? If I have a right click, then I have to restore my original tool, which I do by going to the menu and clicking on the original tool. And then I will remove the mouse move event. I don't want to keep drawing after I left go of the cursor or after the tablet, after the pen is no longer touching the tablet. Then if I have mouse up, because I may not have it, if I have mouse up, I run this mouse up thing, which is kind of silly. I'm calling this function when I could just be binding another one of these mouse up event listeners, but yeah, it is what it is. It doesn't really matter. Now let's look at the actual implementations of mouse up or mouse move, better yet. So when I have a pen or a highlighter, they are pretty similar. The only difference is the opacity and the stroke width. Now, if I am doing a fade, I don't want to undo that because the drawing is going to go away by itself. So if I have no fade, then I'm going to go to all my drawing editors and I'm going to create an undo point. That's some code that we just wrote. Then we have a group, and a group is just one of these children because we want all the highlighters to be behind all the pens. So we have this, and they actually are sort of layers. You can think of them as you would have layers in something like Adobe Illustrator. So I need to get a hold of the right layer, and I do that by doing this, which will go to the right tool, either the highlighter or the pen. Then I insert a path. The indentation here is incorrect. Now, this path is going to be both the internal representation as well as the literal drawing that you see on the screen. And I start by moving to the right location. I move the cursor. So this D thing is something that we covered in detail in previous streams. It's just a string that has this language. It's a domain-specific language that determines how the drawing is going to occur. So I move the pen to a certain location, which is my current location. I don't want any fill on this. This is just a line. I get a hold of the color from the settings and the stroke width as well. And if I am in the highlighter mode, I'm going to multiply this stroke width by a constant to make it thicker. And I guess that the thickness was not satisfactory to me, so I'm going to make it even thicker. So this is what a regular line looks like, and this is what the highlighter looks like. And if you go to a really wide stroke width, then you get a really wide, a really wide line with the marker, which I appreciate. And even the thinness is kind of thick already. So that is better. It just doesn't match what we are doing with the custom cursor, but that's all right. Yeah, okay. It's just checking if there were other occurrences. So I can draw something, and then this. That works nice. Oh, and this is being clipped. But I suppose I am going to remove this little circle from the custom cursor anyway when I get there, because I don't like it. So no problem. Let's commit what we have so far. It's not much. Now for the stroke opacity, if I have the highlighter on, I go to half opacity and the joins are all round. Then in terms of style, if I have a fade, then I am going to transition the opacity with the amount of fade. And that's how the fade works. It's a CSS thing. I also will later look for this transition to be over, and then I will actually remove the line from the drawing. Now I'm going to create this path variable, which is just this path essentially. I wonder if I should do this in some other way, like parsing this string or whatever. I wonder if this will work. I forget the API for this, however. MDN DOM parser. An example of this is create a DOM parser, parse from strings. So new DOM parser, I think this is capitalized. Like this, right? And then parse that. Well, wouldn't it be nice if I had some new lines to make that more readable? And then I probably want to say that this is SVG. I don't think it will make a huge difference, but I think it's nice to do that. And then when I say insert adjacent HTML, I think I need to say insert adjacent element using the path. Now this fits in a single line, and I can remove that. I believe this is a cleaner implementation of the same thing. Let's see if it works. It does not. Let's alert. Quick and dirty way of getting a hold of the path. It is an XML document. Oh, it is a whole document. I think I would prefer for that to be a string, a fragment. Yeah, that's an XML document. Well, probably I can just get the root of that document. Yeah, something like first element child should do. And now I have an element, so how about I don't alert it anymore? No, that doesn't work. Did I make this other part up? Insert adjacent element. Is that a thing? That is a thing. So, yep, that does not work. All right, we can just revert this. Mm-hmm. And we are back in a working state. Now let's see what we do with this path. So we have a constant t, and this has to do with making the lines curvy. So when I'm drawing, especially if I'm fast, there is no way for me to get a hold of all the points in between. And if I just draw straight lines between the points, the drawing becomes too blocky. And then I have this algorithm for smoothing this out. And I suppose that the implementation of the algorithm starts here. So I'm going to put this comment there, and that's the reference to the algorithm. That's the explanation of the algorithm I'm using. And I think that this document is the same. Yeah, I think that this document didn't change. But in any case, this T is the smoothness of the curve. And I think that they call it T over there in that document. So it makes sense for me to have this as T here as well. Otherwise, I'm going to change this. Okay. T equals something. So let's look for this. Yeah, so lowercase t is a constant parameter t. Okay, and that is the curviness, and we already tuned this t to be the curviness. So because I'm keeping this reference here, I'm keeping the variable names. I don't think they are ideal, but they are good enough because they refer to the document, and then there is a one-to-one correspondence. Even things like x0, x1, and x2 map to what you see in the drawing. And I start all of them with the current position, and P1 and P2 are the control points. So these are the anchor points of a Bezier curve, and these are the control points of a Bezier curve, and they all start in the singular point where my cursor is right now. So it's just a way to start this. Because on mouse move, I am going to check if I did not move at all. So if my event, so on mouse move, if my cursor did not move from x2, which is my current position, I stop execution of this mouse move handler. Otherwise, I update the x2, and then I calculate the distances between. Okay, a random question from Aria. Is it on purpose that all your text is red? Not quite. So the thing is, I am writing using these packages that we are also using in your website, Aria, these liafac and CSS packages, and they are great because they allow me to co-locate or write together the structure, the SVG structure, as well as its behavior, which is what happens when you click on stuff. And this co-location, I think, is super beneficial, and it's great. And there are other frameworks that do this. You may have heard of something called React by Facebook. Has the same idea of co-location of behavior and structure. And going back, that idea even has underpinnings on object-oriented programming, which is a very old idea, 40 years old, I think, at this point. So the idea of co-locating code like this is smart. It's a good idea. The problem is, I don't really have a good, because of the tools around my packages are not that great. I mean, I'm still writing them. Um, then this JavaScript thing is client-side JavaScript. I have nested levels of code, and this is client-side JavaScript. And when I say client-side, this is not something that runs in the Electron land. This runs in the browser window, in the drawing itself. And then this is a tagged template literal in JavaScript, which marks this string. This is essentially just a string, but this string is JavaScript code. Now, there are Visual Studio Code extensions to highlight this in a smart way. For instance, this is just a string, but I tagged it saying that it's HTML, and then syntax highlighter kicked in. We see colors. Awesome. And this extension works very well for HTML. It's not perfect, but it works well. And then there are similar extensions to syntax highlight CSS and to syntax highlight JavaScript, but they are buggy. And that's why the text is in red. Now, I'm planning on at some point implementing my own extension for Visual Studio Code that will fix this and will highlight the colors the way you would expect. But that doesn't exist yet. And the existing ones are buggy, I guess because I'm probably pushing this infrastructure harder than anyone ever tried. This whole let's manipulate code as strings structure is weird, to say the least. But I also think it's excellent. So I'm probably going to push this further and create my own extension for this. But we're not there yet, so that's why everything is in red. And I don't think it is too much of a problem. I sort of got used to this. Even before I was doing this, I was using some other features in the text editor that would disable syntax highlighting. I think that it works and it helps in some scenarios, but it doesn't help in other scenarios. I don't know, I guess it's also a matter of taste, and there are themes for the syntax highlighter, you know. You can come here to change the color theme of the syntax highlighter. For instance, I can go to like this, right? And it's very matrixy, but but it's still colorful. But there are, let me go back to my default light, but there are more syntax highlight or more themes that you can install, including monochromatic. So, and they are not super popular, but they exist. There is a niche of people who prefer to code with no colors or minimal colors. And I kind of understand where they're coming from. I look at this and it's so big, but it makes sense to me. I mean, it is calmer. Now, at this point, you're thinking, oh my God, now I understand why your Reaper projects look the way they look. Because my Reaper project is always just gray. Yeah, I find that calming. And if I need something to be colored, it's usually not the syntax, it's the semantics. It's usually the meaning of things. So if I wanted to have something in purple, it is because it is JavaScript nested in HTML, for instance. And then I would like a different color for when I'm nesting HTML in JavaScript in HTML. So maybe the layers could be colored differently instead of the syntax. And it's not just that it's helpful to beginners. Colors, they help you parse the text. But yeah, I think that in some cases it's better to have a different notion of syntax highlighting. Yeah. But I agree that if I want to make this mainstream, I have to write a Visual Studio Code extension so that the code is highlighted. In any case, we are looking at this algorithm, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing again. I'm just going to quickly glance and see if something stands out. So I update x2, I calculate the distances between x0 and x1 and x1 and x2 by using the Cartesian distance. And I could have extracted this into a function, but the formula is already there. It's in front of me. It's okay. Then it's the distance between x and y in x1 and x0, and here x1 and x2, so no typos, of course. And then the distance between x1 and x2 passing by x1, that's what this is. I just add up these distances, and then I take the ratios, and then I take the width and the height of the triangle. And then P1, one of the control points, is this formula. Great. Then I set attributes. Okay, so I calculated the control points, P1 and P2. Of course, P2 is, just to begin with, it's here, but when I loop around, this is on the next MouseMove event. This is going to be a different one. And then when I set this, I want to keep the existing one, then draw a curve to point 2, passing by, no, and I want to draw a Bezier curve to x1, passing by control points P2 and P1. The P2 is from the previous calculation. And then P2 is just, it's calculated similar to P1, except that it's adding, and then I shift everything over area. If you're looking at this, you may be remembering the filters that we wrote. And yes, it is similar. It's related, actually. The idea that we have here is to smooth out the curve. So if you have these points, for instance, and you want to connect them, if you connect them with lines, they become just too ragged. They become weird. But with curves, it's much nicer, it's smoother. Now, you can think of this as a low-pass filter because the rate of change when there is just a straight edge, the rate of change right there on that edge is so big. And what we are trying to do is smooth out the rate of change of this line. Of course, this is two-dimensional, not unidimensional, like in an audio signal. But the logic here is similar. It's a low-pass filter of sorts. It's just implemented in a different way because I want to make sure that I go through every point and I want to smooth the curves in a particular way. I don't want the thing to overshoot. For instance, a filter overshoots. If you look very closely, that's what the resonance of the filter is. And depending on the type of filter, the overshooting would just look like weird squiggly lines. And that's why I use this particular instance of smoothing things out. Hey, Bo, great to have you here. Yes, and yes, this is Bezier curves. And in particular, the problem that I have is I have a set of anchor points which were collected while I was moving the cursor around when I was drawing. So I have the anchor points, the yellow points. I actually realized that this is behind my face. So I have the anchor points, which are the yellow points. They are collected when the mouse was moving. And my job is to compute these black dots, which are called the control points for the Bezier curve. So I need to compute the control points for the Bezier curve that will smooth these things as much as possible in a way that feels natural when drawing and in a way that doesn't overshoot. I don't want to overshoot because that can become like squiggly lines. And in a proper low-pass filter for audio signals, the scenario is different. We are in one dimension, the signal, the time, and we do things with different algorithms, but the principle is the same. The principle is you are smoothing things out. You are decreasing the rate of change. You are doing a low-pass filter. Yeah, and I suppose, Bo, what you're interested in is not this problem, the problem of computing where the control points should be, right? Because SVGs have Bezier curves. I just need to calculate where the black dots need to be, and an SVG knows how to draw that. But what you are interested in, Bo, I suppose, is given the anchor points and the control points, how do I calculate all the points in the middle? And there is actually a great video about this. There are plenty of videos to explain this part. When you go search for Bezier curves, you're going to find a lot of videos that explain how to do this part. But there is a new one, and I watched it, and it was very nice, by the coding train Bezier. So if you search for coding train Bezier, this is the video right here, and you can see that I watched it. Yeah, so then explains how to do the computation of the points in the middle, the so-called interpolation with the Bezier curve. Okay, so that's how you actually draw stuff that is smooth. And of course, it didn't start this way. I started by drawing straight lines between the points, and then I noticed that that didn't look too nice. So I came up with this strategy instead, and I found this. And then handle mouse up is for, let's see. In the case of drawing, I get this G thing. And if it does not include a curve, so it means that I put the pen on the tablet, but then I released. I didn't move. It means that there is no C in my path. And then in that case, I just draw a curve just so that it shows up. So even if you you just touch the tablet with your pen, it shows up as a little point. That's what I'm doing here. It's a special case. And if the fade is false, I'm not fading, then stop right there. But if I am not fading, then let's go to opacity of 0. And then when I am done transitioning, I remove myself. So the path literally goes away from the SVG at that point. Now, if I'm on the eraser, I need to do a computation that is, did I touch, or is there a collision between the cursor and any of the shapes on the screen? And if there is, then I will remove it. And Bo says that the Beziers are for my silent treatment. I think it's the only way to do a smooth transition from silence to 0 dB. I don't think that Bezier curves are the only way, but they think that they are one way. You can also look at things like just sine functions, or tangent, hyperbolic tangents have a nice smooth curve as well. See, you can go from, well, I guess in this case it's scaled from -infinity to infinity, but I suppose you can sort of shift this forward and up, and then you can go from 0 to 1 instead. I can think of a parabolic curve that matches that transition. Yeah, there are plenty of formulas for this kind of smoothing. But Bezier curves is definitely an option, especially if you want to give people the Bezier control points and you can move them around, and then that could be a nice graphical user interface for the thing that you are doing. And you can sort of draw the same way you would draw a dynamics response curve of some kind. I don't know exactly what silence treatment even is. Maybe it is a dynamics control thing, like a compressor or something. In any case, so here when I am doing the eraser, first of all, I have to just create undo points if I am going to erase something. So I start by saying that I did not create an undo point. Then if I am going to remove something, I actually create an undo point. That's just so I don't create an undo point unnecessarily, and I don't create multiple ones. That's why I have this variable here. So you say that you used something similar to that, but it needs a raised 0 point. Otherwise, you get subtle clicking. Fair point, yeah. I remember having done something that required an equation for that, and I found a very good one. CSS smoothing formula, easing formula, and I found it on Stack Overflow. What was I trying to do? I forget. Yeah, so Bezier is an option and parametric function. Okay, that's exactly the Stack Overflow I found. Just don't remember why I needed that. But I found this formula. Oh, I remember why I needed that. On my auto mixer, I needed something like this. I needed something with this shape that would be smooth and everything. So this is a parameterized function that can give you any access between 0 and 1, and it's smooth in the beginning and the end, and it's super simple to implement. Do I have that on my auto mixer? I suppose I have that equation on my auto mixer. Not the auto mixer setup, but my effects, auto mixer, and then let's just look for something like alpha. No. Oh, now that I look at the code for the auto mixer, it's only 200 lines of code. This is so short. Oh, here it is. I remember it had to do with the strength parameter. So see this equation here, it's similar to that, except that the alpha I am calling strength. So, and of course, this is the track gain instead of x. So now I elevate to the power of strength and then divide by track gain elevated to the power of strength plus 1 minus x to the power. See, it's that equation. There it is. That's how I do strength on my auto mixer. And it is smooth in the beginning and the end and everything. So a very nice curve. And you're saying, what are you saying? Silent treatment is a super soft gate with simple controls meant for vocals or dialogue. I know you to code a gate too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm interested in coding a gate, yes. And I'm interested in coding a gate because I want it to be visual. I want to show the curve like this, and I want to show the gain as it's going down and up and everything. Okay. Yeah. All right. Aria, see you later. Oh, okay. I have more of the chat. It was not updating. Oh, so what you're using, Bo, what you're using is this equation that I showed you, and it's still clicking. That's interesting. It's smooth all over. It shouldn't be clicking. But in any case, I don't know too much about this either. That's why I want to do a gain plugin. Maybe a gate, maybe a compressor, a limiter, or whatever. In any case, let me finish this because then there will not be much left and I will finish this code review. So to do the collision detection, if the eraser touched something that is on the screen, I'm going to create a set of elements to remove, and then that's on every mouse move. So as I'm moving the cursor with the eraser, I'm checking, do I have anything to remove? And I will have something to remove if I can get a hold of a path. And a path is the only kind of structure that I have now, but I suppose that in the future I will have other tools like rectangle and circle, and then in that case I will have more of this switch case statements. In any case, so here I have a path, and then for each of the coordinates in the path, which is this weird function that extracts the coordinates x and y from the path. Yeah, I'm not even going to review this because I suppose it is working and I don't want to touch it. Now, if the distance is, oh, see again, Cartesian distance, the formula is here again. If I had extracted that, it would be in a single place. But if it is close enough, then, oh, and look at that, the multiplier for the stroke width is now the same as the one for the highlighter, 5. So if I need to add something, then I add something, I add that, then I break because I know that I needed to add that element. So I don't need to keep checking. Then I go to the next element and try again. Now, if I need to create an undo point, I do go ahead and create it. And then I remove all the elements that I need to remove. And that's the end of the razor. Okay, it was not a perfect explanation, but it was something. At least it convinced me that I am in the right track. Oh, okay. Bo is telling me to continue. I'm continuing. Almost done, actually. So now for the custom cursor, I need its position to be absolute because I want to move it around, and the width and the height of the cursor. And I do a transform to center it on my cursor, and I want it to start with red. And then on mouse enter and on mouse leave, I hide the thing so that when you are like going to the menu, that's a mouse leave. So I hide the custom cursor. Now I do a mutation observer on the drawing editor. And if I am hiding, then I hide my cursor as well. I don't remember why I need that. I'll get back to it. When I'm doing a mouse move, I move the coordinates of the absolutely positioned cursor. And then this update is something that happens when you update the settings. So I get a hold of the settings. I change the color. This circle I don't want anymore. I just want the crosshair. So yeah, this I don't want anymore. This has a class of circle. I don't know why. I call this the circle. It's not the circle, it's a crosshair. And then this. I guess it started as the circle. Now I don't need to change the radius of the circle. I don't need to change the opacity of the circle. This is redundant. Well, actually, I guess it's only used in one place, so it goes like this. Oh, and I'm very clever to set the color to the parent so that both the crosshair as well as the eraser go to the right color. Now let's see. I change the color on myself, the custom cursor, then I go to the crosshair and I hide it if I have the eraser. Then again, I don't know why I do it this way. I could just inline that, right? Yeah, that simplifies things in a way that makes sense to me. And I don't think I will do anything with the cursor on when fade is enabled. So now, to update the custom cursor, I get a hold of the settings. I check the settings color and apply it to myself. I go to the crosshair and I hide it if necessary. And I go to the eraser and I hide it if necessary. And this is my crosshair. Now, do I really need to have this div? I suppose I could just do it like this. Oh, I think that hidden didn't work with SVGs directly. See, let me go to the eraser. Yeah, it's not alternating. It's not hiding the crosshair. but now it is hiding the crosshair. But then the eraser, that was a font awesome thing that we removed. So let me go to my favorite icons library and get an eraser. Maybe I will want it to be filled, maybe not, I don't know. What I do know is that I have an eraser. I suppose I want it to be filled. I'm doing the quick and dirty thing, which is just drop the SVG in there, because I know I will not need many of these. And this is a perfectly looking eraser. Awesome. And now I have just these SVGs in line, which is great. Do we have something like a crosshair? Cursor. Something like line. Cross doesn't exist. No, these kinds of cursor are not what I want. Some forms of pens. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go continue with my crosshair. Yep, looks great. And with that, we have concluded the code review of the drawing window. Next up, the code review of the menu, which is not really just a code review anymore. It is a redo of the menu. We need to go over it again and make sure that it works well. Now let's go over this real quick. Since Electron 14 update, the menu isn't clickable. That's no longer the case. Full screen applications aren't working anymore. Okay, that is still a problem. Switch from front awesome to bootstrap icons. Flash out the metadata. Menu is flashing in weird ways. No longer the case. And undo, redo across displays. So that is all for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here and commenting and having this lovely conversation. I see you tomorrow over here. We are doing something different this time. Arya and I are going to be working on his new website, and we're going to do it here, not on his channel. So yeah, I see you tomorrow over here to do more web programming stuff. Thanks for being with me, and I see you tomorrow. Bye.